Hey, before I start the video, I know a lot of you guys have questions regarding Blue's story, but I want to make it clear that this video will only talk about what sexual abuse each abusers represent. When Blue's story will end, I will then make a final video talking about it. So, for now, let's talk about the abusers. First of all, she is a cisgender masculine woman in her 40s. She is a sexual predator. She can be a teacher, a coach, a boss, an older person, a stronger person, or any person holding power over their victim. She uses the power imbalance to her advantage. Purple is also a groomer as well. Grooming is a form of abuse that involves manipulating someone until they're isolated, dependent, and more vulnerable to exploitation. Although I'm aware some people won't agree that Purple is a groomer, as a groomer is mainly an adult or older minors grooming a younger minor. Both Blue and Red are young adults here. But I think it's worth mentioning what exactly is grooming and how someone can be groomed. There are different stages of grooming. I will only be talking about the stages of grooming that were displayed in Blue's story. There are way more that Blue's story didn't include. For example, the groomer threatening the victim to harm the victim or themselves if they speak up. Remember that all groomers have different ways of grooming. First of all, a groomer starts by identifying their victim. They will look for the age of the victim, appearance, and vulnerable traits. For Red, Purple looks at her age and her naivety. For Blue, she looked at his inability to speak up. Purple couldn't groom him at the beginning, as Blue would most likely fight back. But as Blue became more vulnerable with his abuse, he became more vulnerable and easy to target. Purple will not target Pink as she knows she will fight back and is extremely defensive. After finding their next victim, they will try to gain trust with them. They do this very smoothly by doing small things for you, listening to you, helping you with certain problems. Things that seem normal for a friend to do in a friendship. I've noticed a lot of people thought Red and Purple were friends. It's possible for an older person to be friends with someone younger. However, Purple has bad intentions behind her interaction with Red and Blue. Purple will then isolate the victim, finding ways to talk alone or separate them from others who might interfere. This is to make the victim more vulnerable to her. Next is sexualizing the relationship. Again, this happens slowly. For example, patting their head, caressing their cheek, rubbing their shoulders, things that for most of us aren't sexual. They do this to desensitize the victim to their touch. Same with gaining trust. Their intention behind these touches is twisted and sexual. Finally, after they have done all of this, they gain control over the relationship. Purple has more power over her victim, where she can harm them in any way if they try to leave. Grooming is different ways someone manipulates you into staying in an unhealthy relationship. It is very hard for a victim to leave such a relationship and extremely insensitive to shame and judge a victim for not simply leaving, especially when such a victim is dependent on their groomer or emotionally attached to them. Lavender is a case of incest and is a bystander. She is a family member of Blue around the same age as him. Her age doesn't matter. She manipulates Blue through excessive gifts and gaslighting. The excessive gifts are given to fulfill the needs of the victim, in Blue's case, to cover expenses such as food and clothing. This creates an intense emotional bond and even a sense of indebtedness to the gaslighter, granting them power and control. For Lavender, she doesn't use the gifts to directly force Blue to do what she wants, nor to directly guilt-trip Blue. There are other ways someone might excessively gift someone as a form of manipulation. Similarly to Purple, she isolates Blue to exert more control over the victim. She is one of the non-physical sexual abusers. Lavender stares at Blue while changing without him knowing, violating his privacy. When confronted, Lavender downplays the sexual abuse, making the victim doubt their reality and what really happened. She says, "It's not that big of a deal," or "You are overreacting." Lavender does this to avoid accountability for her own bad behavior. Being gaslighted leaves the victim questioning the validity of their own thoughts, perception of reality, or memories, and makes them feel confused, lose confidence, and self-esteem. Lavender is a bystander. She is aware of Blue's sexual abuse yet doesn't do anything. Lavender doesn't want to be involved in any of this. For Pink's cases, it's to avoid confrontation and responsibility. For Red, Lavender doesn't see Red as bad, but just as an overly obsessed girl, and to avoid making Purple angry. Lavender is scared of Purple for her own reasons. Now I want to talk about the incest part for a minute. I will not cover this topic as Blue's story only focuses on the SA in the workplace, not in his childhood. He is a victim of child-on-child sexual abuse with Lavender. Lavender always had incestuous thoughts toward Blue, mostly because she was a child and unaware how morally wrong this is. As an adult, she is aware that these sexual thoughts are awful. I will not go in depth with this, but I wanted to give some advice. I know that young people are watching my videos and one day we will all be adults. If you ever see a kid in your family being oddly sexual toward another child that is blood-related, rubbing their body, playing games that can become sexual, talking about marrying their cousin siblings, etc., sit with them and tell them that it is not okay. Yes, kids are curious about their own body and we shouldn't shame them for exploring it, and a simple, "I will marry my cousin," is harmless. However, not correcting it, the kids will think such inappropriate sexual behavior is normal, and there is nothing wrong with doing this behavior which will lead to them continuing such action. Kids and teens are extremely influenceable. A lot of sexual harassment can go undercover as it's done by a family member or your parents. There are behaviors and interactions between families that should and shouldn't happen. There are a lot of abuses that has been normalized in certain family or seen as a tradition. I won't go in depth with the issues that some family have with sexual abuse and how some of those inappropriate sexual behavior has been normalized and excused as love. It's another huge topic on its own, but mainly both the victim and abusers who are children need help in this situation. So please don't wait until it becomes something big to step in. Red is a 19-year-old naive woman. She is younger than Blue. Blue is 25 years old. Blue was the one who initiated the friendship. She develops feelings toward Blue over time. She love bombs Blue to declare her love for him. The excessive compliments and love letters negatively overwhelm him. Red doesn't understand boundaries and continues declaring her love toward Blue, although he had already stated that he doesn't feel any romantic feelings toward her. She doesn't have BPD. A lot of people suggest she has a mental health disorder, and honestly, I never planned that people would come to that conclusion. I personally know nothing about this disorder, and she never was meant to have it. I don't want people who suffer from BPD to feel represented by a sexual abuser, especially since such a disorder is very misunderstood and misrepresented. You guys deserved better representation. Compared to the rest, Red is the only one who has manipulative behavior that comes from good intentions. She simply wants Blue to love her back and will do anything to make Blue like her. Red isn't a yandere. She is simply extremely obsessive and lacks experience when it comes to healthy ways to love someone. Red was redeemable when she was still in her innocent crush phases, and if she was surrounded by a good influence, they would have helped her move on. However, Red is the closest to Purple. Red isn't a victim of grooming, as Purple didn't successfully groom her, fortunately for Red, as she misinterpreted what Purple was saying. Purple isn't the reason she ends up this way. It's bad influence, ending up sexualizing herself for Blue. She sexually harassed Blue by making unwanted sexual comments toward Blue, making Blue touch her and sexualize her body for Blue. Being constantly harassed in the workplace, in school, or any places that we frequently go will affect the victim. The constant paranoia and stress that at any moment the abuser can find them is exhausting. Having someone stalking you and obsessively having a crush on you is at best annoying. Red, compared to the other abusers, is extremely impulsive. She will get frustrated when Blue still doesn't reciprocate her feelings and might assault him. She is the type of abuser to use pity and, in her cases, unintentionally guilt-trip the victims toward getting what they want. In some cases, the abusers will apologize once they abused you. They apologize to make the situation okay without facing the consequences of their choice and avoid taking responsibility for their actions. It's a form of manipulation, although for Red, other people victimize her and put the blame onto Blue. Pink is a young married woman around the same age as Blue who holds the same job position as Blue. Blue initiates the relationship by flirting with Pink. Their affair was consensual at first. Blue willingly engaged in an affair with Pink, despite knowing she had a husband. Blue himself has flaws and isn't innocent, but as time passed, Pink became more forceful and controlling. Pink sexually assaults Blue by groping his private area, a detail that not many people have picked up on. I don't and will never explicitly show any sexual abuse. I will always hint at it, but I guess for Pink, I didn't properly hint at it. When confronted, Pink becomes defensive by using past behaviors of Blue and his insecurities against him. This allows the manipulator to shame the victim and either crush them or put them on the defensive. She knows how to use Blue's doubts and confusions against him. For example, when he worries about not being manly enough, she'll reinforce that by telling Blue that he isn't a real man for rejecting her sexual advances. One thing I noticed a lot was people saying that Pink represents lust. The feelings Blue has toward Pink are lust, but Pink sexually abusing him isn't. Sexual abuse is never about lust or the urge someone can't control. Sexual abuse is often planned, either over days, weeks, or in a matter of minutes. It's just like any other type of abuse. It's about control and power. Pink isn't sexually abusing him because of the love she feels toward Blue. She simply loves the power she holds over him. I've been hinting a lot about Pink's abuse with her husband. She is a case of the abused become the abusers, a victim of domestic violence and sexual abuse by her husband. All victims react differently after being abused. In Pink's case, she became more aggressive, as in, no one can hurt me if I'm the one doing it first. Around 30%, 40% of victims of abuse end up becoming abusers themselves. Men are disproportionately perpetrators of harm and violence. The way Pink sees men, especially after her abuse, is completely valid. Please don't invalidate Pink's sexual abuse. Women as well as men who were abused by men are also not taken as seriously for their own respective reasons. Men and boys who have been sexually abused by women may experience the same effects as other survivors, and they may face other challenges that are more unique to their experience. A lot of abusers tend to be victims of abuse too, and they can repeat the patterns of abuse they were subjected to, or create new ones in their relationships with others. This abuse can become a cycle, and the responsibility to break this vicious cycle relies solely on the victims. It can be very hard, as such abuses were masked as a way to show love, were normalized, or for many other reasons. If you are a victim of any abuse and are scared you will become like Pink, understanding that you acknowledge how wrong your abuses were and not wanting to hurt others is the first step to take. It shows that you want to improve and not end up like your abusers. That in itself proves that you won't become like your abusers. Unfortunately, Pink took the path that is most familiar to her. Pink, being a victim of sexual abuse, can be used as a manipulation tactics to prove that she can't be an abuser if she herself was abused. Although Pink will not be the one to use the victim card to invalidate Blue's sexual abuse. And that's it. I hope I clear up some misconceptions people had about SA, and you guys understand more on how abusers manipulate their victims. Now, the other half of Blue's story will focus mainly on Blue and different ways someone behaves in the long term after being SA. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and see you guys at the end of Blue's story.